Hey, listen, man. I don't even know how we start this show today, except for to say, man, on today's AJ and Gates Hoop Dreams podcast, we got somebody that's legendary. I just got to put all the credentials out there, man. A legendary sports writer, commentator, educator. He's worked with ESPN, the LA Times, the Washington Post, and of course, our hometown, the Chicago Sun-Times. I
Yeah.
mean, he's covered everything from the Stanley Cup finals to the Olympics, the Super Bowl, World Series, World Cup, Wimbledon, US Open, the Masters. And get this, AG,
What up?
20 times the NBA Finals. Come on, man. He's putting some work in. But he is
Let's
now
go.
currently the director of sports journalism at Northwestern University, sitting up there in Evanston, Illinois. We'd like to welcome to the show the AG and Gates Hoop Dreams podcast, the one, the only, none other than himself, Mr. J.A. Adande. Man,
Adande!
welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What's
Appreciate that.
up?
Left one thing out though, man. I got to get it before you.
He said you left one thing
That
out though.
that Hall of Fame ring.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
The Basketball Hall
sir.
of Fame.
Hall of Fame, but that's right. That's right. That's right.
As of last month.
That's right. That's
The bio
right.
might not have been updated, but no, that's
Hall
my
of Fame.
that's my
Well
crowning
deserved,
achievement. It's
That's
funny
what's
because
up, man.
after the panel that we did at the University of Chicago on the 30th anniversary of Hoop Dreams, a couple young, they're about the age you guys were at the time of the movie, and they asked me how I get to where I want to go, and this, that, the other, and I said actually the best thing for me was having my dreams crushed at an early age because it allowed me to pivot to something more realistic. I realized by 8th grade that NBA wasn't happening for me. I was about 5'3". Everyone else hit their growth spurt,
Right.
and I got stuck below 5'5", and I didn't grow for another 4 or 5 years. My
Wow.
growth came late in the game, junior, senior year of high school. So I realized, all right, time for Plan B. But
Yeah.
it allowed me to exceed my dreams, right? Because
Mhm.
I didn't realistically think I could make it to the Hall of Fame as a basketball player, right? I would have been happy just to make it to the NBA. But by going in this different direction and pursuing that media career, I was able to get to the Hall of Fame.
And not just the Hall of Fame, but you have experienced,
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, without the sore backs, the sore knees, the broken ankles, you have achieved the ultimate hoop dreams. I mean, NBA Hall of Fame. I mean, you get no greater than that. But Jay,
You know what's funny, Will? Because Arthur's guy, Isaiah Thomas, the weekend I got in, I went up to All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, and I was talking with Isaiah, and he said, he was like, man, your way of making it is better because for all the things you just said, Will, your knees feel good, your back feels good. He's like, I would rather have done it your way.
absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing.
That's the truth. Well, listen, Jay, our show is a little bit different. Obviously, we won't talk about all the sports stuff that we can, but man, we want our
Yeah.
audience to know you. But we asked every guest this first. We know you've seen Hoop Dreams, and thank you, man, for doing the
Yes.
thing, the show with us last weekend in Chicago. But when you first saw Hoop Dreams, what were your initial thoughts?
First, it was a game changer, right? We just hadn't seen something in that format tell the story from that perspective, and spend so much time on an often underlooked place in our society, right? The West Side or the South Side of Chicago. These weren't the places that you were seeing on the movie screens. So to see that world highlighted and focused on, and just to again, it keeps going back to the dreams, just that pursuit and that hunger, and the main thing was the persistence of you guys. All the adversity and the obstacles, and just how the dream persisted right through the very end. I'm trying to remember that my initial thoughts, seeing it back 30 years ago. But I feel like that's what stuck with me. And I think those are the reasons that this has lasted so long and it still remains relevant 3 decades later.
Yeah.
Yeah, AJ, and I find it incredible, man. Here we are, 3 decades later, talking about hoop dreams, and we don't even got a gym shoe yet. I don't know what's up, but I think we
Right?
need a
Working
gym
on your
shoe by
shoes.
now. Something like
Well,
that.
come on,
We
Well,
should
man.
be up to like the Hoop Dream 7 by now,
Right?
right?
literally,
At least
literally,
or maybe the 8s.
something. But at this point, we'll just take the HD1.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Man, tell us about you. Where did you grow up? How was, childhood like for you?
I grew up mostly in Santa Monica, California. We lived in San Jose for a year and moved to New York for a year, which was where my mom was from, and then moved back. And, it was a peaceful time, a very diverse community. Just we'd have friends group of like all different races represented. And summertime especially, it was just hoop and the beach. We go down to the boys club and hoop. And then the days we weren't hooping at the boys club, we go down to the beach and hang out. And, I feel so fortunate to have grown up there at that time. And Santa Monica today, people think of it as like a Beverly Hills type, but back then it was really just a sleepy community, kind of when the hippies, settled down and started to have families, that's where they lived. And, we were all able to live there. It was one of the first places in the nation with rent control. And so it really enabled working class people to live there and to stay there. And, so you were able to have some diversity in the city because it wasn't as exclusive as it is now. And so, I grew up, the big blessing was I didn't have fear or worry. My mom worked hard. I was a latchkey kid. That was the term back then, right? Like, single moms, and most of my friends, we were all single kids from single moms, and our moms were working, and we'd come home after school and have to let ourselves in, and it'd just be come home and watch cartoons, or go to the boys club after school. Best deal in town, man. It was $3.50 a year.
Yes.
Or I'm sure you guys as parents now can appreciate having supervised activities for your kids for $3.50 a year. That meant the world to mama. Or 2 years for $5. That was the special deal.
Get the special deal.
The special 2 years for $5, save $1.50. But so that was my world, and it was a safe environment, and I was allowed to just play basketball as much as I wanted to, man, and that's what, that's how you made your friends, was on the basketball court, and people from the rich part of town, from the poor part of town, the middle part, which was where I lived, and we'd all be at the boys club playing basketball together.
So you lived in all three big markets, New York, LA, and Chicago.
Yeah. Lived in New York for a little bit, spent time working in DC. So even though we weren't in New York, being on the East Coast made a difference. Like being a part of that East Coast media, that kind of Boston, New York, Washington corridor. Like it's funny, people treated me differently. There was one big time writer. I remember when I met him when I was working at the Chicago Sun-Times, it was kind of like, but then once I was working at the Washington Post, now I was part of the club. And so it was interesting the different ways people,
you can't do that to
fraternity.
us, man.
Wow.
You can't do that to us. You can't.
I didn't do it. He did it to me.
I'm saying you
I'm
can't
not doing
throw
it
that.
to you.
I'm saying you can't throw it out there and don't give us no name.
Oh, no, I gotta protect.
Look, Jay, like, no.
Listen, you said you grew up single parent home. Any siblings?
So my father, my mom and I weren't with my father. He was in Paris, actually. So my mom met him in Paris, and I was born in the U.S. And then we moved back there when I was young. I don't have any memories of it, and it didn't work out, so we moved back. So he later remarried and had 2 kids. So I do have 2 siblings. It's funny. The people that grew up with me think of me as the only child, and I describe myself as the only child. But I do have siblings, but I just didn't grow up with them, and I'm a lot older than them. So it's almost more like cousins than siblings.
Siblings, right.
My brother is in Paris, and my sister moved to Vancouver, which is my favorite city in North America. and she had a daughter and now a son that was born this year. So I'm an uncle. I have a niece and nephew, and I love going to Vancouver to see them. I just went back there this
You should
summer.
have said that. Now Matt, producers on the show, man, he's gonna love that. He's like, Vancouver. That's him. That's him. Your career, man, is so amazing. And I read off a list of things, but tell us, as you was growing up through high school, like, where did that bug? Was it always there to get into some level of journalism, or were you just like, you know what, I'm gonna just filter my way, or were you playing like you was a journalist back, when you was coming through high school?
You know what? I was the journalist. Like I said, I was aware early on that I wasn't going to be a player. So I played for a couple of years, and then my knee got messed up, and so that was really, really the time to get serious. And again, it was a blessing because I wouldn't have been able to be an editor at the school paper and be the sports editor if I was playing, and the time commitment that would have taken to be on the team. So that looked a lot better on my resume applying for or my applications applying for colleges, that I could put sports editor and editor in chief at a school paper. But yeah, I was working toward it. That was my goal. I would do play-by-play on the game film for the coach, would have somebody videotape the game so that, they could watch it and break down the film. And I just got a microphone and plugged it into the camera and just did play-by-play. No one was watching it except for the coach and the team.
Right.
So it wasn't like I had a big audience, but I just wanted to do it. And then I would write stories for the school paper. And then I got to college, and it's funny, like that bug that you talked about, Will, got me in high school, and then I just got used to seeing my name in the paper. And when I got to Northwestern, they said, take some time, get acclimated, get adjusted to your classes. Don't start working at the school paper as a freshman. And I couldn't stand seeing that paper come out and my name wasn't in it. I got so used to seeing my name in the paper. And I was like, they can't do this without me. I got to have my name in that paper. So I went in, I did a couple of things my first quarter, fall quarter, and then that winter I started covering the women's basketball team. And then, it's funny, I just remembered my freshman and sophomore year, they actually played USC and Lisa Leslie. And they beat them. And they were actually the higher ranked team at that time. I think that was my sophomore year, actually. But so covered the women's basketball team that year, the baseball team in the spring, and then in the next year, my sophomore year, I covered football and men's basketball.
Interesting. Fun fact too, man. Speaking of your alma mater, one of my family members. He knows you very well. Adrian Autry. Does that name sound familiar to you?
Yeah. He hit me up on I think Facebook, after the thing. So, oh man.
His sister is married to my brother.
Yeah.
Small world. Small world.
In-laws.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Northwestern football.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Adrian Autry.
So, man, I just got to ask, because, again, with such an incredible resume, growing up through high school, give us some of those things, what it was like, man, particularly in California, because this is my impression of California. You said a little bit of earlier, beaches. I got a son living in California right now. When I go visit him, the first thing he say, Dad, we got to go to the beach. How did you, two questions on this one. One, how did you leave California? And the second is, when you're out there, how do you stay focused? Because when you hit that beach, it's another world. It's not the same. Like, I've been to Florida. Florida is not California as much as people think that it is. It is not.
Florida doesn't have mountains, for one. We start with that among the many differences. But to your second question, it's a little easier to stay focused than you think, because when every day is like a nice sunny day, you don't feel compelled to get out there and be in the sunshine. In Chicago, when those nice weather days hit, like, you got to get out because you don't know when you're going to get another one of those. Yeah. But in LA, you're like, today's going to be like this, the next day is going to be like this. So you don't feel pressed. You can do your work because, the sun will be there later and it'll be there tomorrow. So don't sweat it. So it's actually easier to focus. And the myth is that LA, everyone is just hanging out at the beach, but LA is actually a very hardworking town.
Yeah.
You know, the movie business starts early a lot of times. So my stepfather was he was a location manager and a location scout. So his job was to find if the script said, okay, there's a scene at a school, right? High school. So he would have to go find a good place and negotiate with them so that they could use it. And then during the production, he'd kind of oversee all the things. You got to have police department members there to, for security. You got to make sure the food trucks are there. You got to shut down the streets, all those stuff. So you'd have to look out. But there are times you got to get to work, the shoot, you got to be there like 5 a.m. and then you're working till midnight, right? So much construction goes on there, I was joking with Bomani Jones, man. Somebody has to clean the pools and mow all those lawns,
That's right.
So, there's a reason when you get on the freeway at 5 a.m. and there's a lot of traffic. Why? Because people are going to work. Because it's a hardworking town.
But what I do want to switch to is, man, I want to. AJ and I, we ask this question all the time too. Most of the kids who go into college and the athletes we've had on the show, like, what was your top 5 schools? You being a journalist, what were your top schools before deciding on Northwestern?